Thank you very, very much. Good morning, everyone. We are going to have fun. I've been told I have about 90 minutes, so I'm going to be here till about 2 o'clock. And to get through the material, I'm going to talk fast. But I always talk fast, so no difference. I'm moving the chairs in because I'm going to be floating around. Emily asked me to scare you this morning. No, she didn't really. No. She said, tell them the truth, right? You don't have to hide anything, she said. She said, tell them how it is. I am going to try and share with you why I believe that we are at a very unique junction in our industry. Now, I'm sure we've all heard that hundreds of times. I'm sure that I've said it hundreds of times. I'm sure it has applied in different times. To give you a quick background on myself, not as a promotion, but I got my realtor's license in 1983. So I come from realtor stock. I am from your background. I've been a member of the association. I was also asked to be executive officer. I actually ran an association. I ran an MLS, I was a broker, started my own brokerage company, built it up to 122 offices, sold it, and was then asked to run one of Realogy's subsidiaries with 26,000 agents worldwide. So I come from your neck of the woods. I am your side of the fence. I am not a media company, and I don't at the moment sell real estate, and I don't have any involvement in real estate sales. For the last 20 years, the only thing that we love to do is to research and to analyze. So the same way that you know your market, you know your town, your zip code very well, and you would not like me to come in and think that I know more than you do, don't try and come into my space and think that you know more than I do, because you don't, right? We research 20 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's all we do. There's no way that you can know what I know. And I'm telling you, I'm struggling to stay current. There is so much happening. Our industry is moving very, very fast. So let me see if I can try and package it for you very quickly. To do so, I'm going to show that you are not unique and we are not the only one. There are many publications. This happens to be one which I respect, the Harvard Business Review, very credible publication from the Harvard University. And you can just see I randomly picked some covers. Again, doesn't matter the names, but just look. Strategy for turbulent times, the shift, reinvention, new rules of competition. It's time to blow HR up. That seems to be the common thread everywhere. We hear about Uber removing the taxis. We hear about Airbnb struggling with the hotels. We hear the airlines are consolidating. I mean, we hear the story all the time. Why on God's green earth do you think that you would be the only industry which would go unscathed? Why do you think that technology is going to go us by? I know we're special. We are special. I know we work hard. I know we are fiercely independent. I know we are fragmented. I know that buyers are liars and sellers are worse. I get it. I know we work on Sundays. I'm part of the space. But we are probably one of the, if not the last industry that has not really felt the impact of consolidation yet. We've not really felt the impact of technology yet. Yeah, we've had Realtor.com and Zillow and Lead Gen and Top Producer. I understand that. But it's just started. We want MLSs to consolidate. We think it's consolidated. Boy, we still have 624 left at a rate at the moment of 3 per month, which is the average rate for the last 3 years. It's going to take us another 16 years to consolidate. Most of us won't be here. Our industry, generally speaking, is moving too slow. When you look at these studies, and Harvard is one example, again, they seem to indicate, generally, this is just a chart which is shown, and says that there's some kind of a cycle. There's probably a cycle to everything, right? To birth, to life, to humans, to plants, to companies. They're saying there's even cycles to industries, and they've plotted different industries to show where their industries are. But if I take all of that away, they basically tell us that just like humans, an industry goes through a cycle. NAR goes through a cycle. MLS goes through a cycle. And it basically says there's 4 components of a cycle. There's the part which it starts. Somebody comes up with the idea. Somebody thinks of Compass, or EXP, or Open Door, right? Somebody comes up with an idea, it starts. It struggles for a couple of years, it maybe never gets off the ground, it dies. Maybe it does get off the ground, maybe it gets funded. If it gets funded, if it gets the right people and management, then the next phase, it picks up. And that concept, that company, that industry, that space goes through a growth spurt, which could be years, could be a decade or 2. Then at some stage, you reach maturity. You've owned the market, you've become a household name. Everybody knows who you are. You've got stability. You've got bureaucracy. You're functioning well. You're the #1 guy in town. And then you reach a crossroad because that company is either going to self-implode itself over time because you're going to tie yourself down with bureaucracy and rules and red tape, or you've got to reinvent yourself. Our industry's at that stage as well. We started as realtors probably about 100 years ago, when people started selling real estate for the first time, and they were represented by an official third party, which was somewhat qualified, somewhat licensed, some member of some organization at the time. Then in the 60s and the 70s and 80s, if you look at the membership of NAR and associations and the number of associations, our industry went through a growth phase. NAR in 1 year went from 300,000 members to 700,000 members. Right? We went through a period of time which it was cool to be a realtor. And then it wasn't that cool to be a realtor anymore. Right? It was common, everybody was there. Realtor became a generic word. Right? Real estate agent, licensed agent, salesperson, sales associate, realtor became the same thing. Whether we look at it from a brokerage point of view, an agent point of view, a team leadership association, MLS, doesn't mind where you look at it, we are probably sitting somewhere here. It is time for our industry because we can't keep on doing what we've done many, many years ago. Coldwell Banker was discovered or created or founded over 100 years ago. Century 21 is over 40 years ago. RE/MAX is over 40 years old. ERA is over 40 years old. The older you get, there's nothing wrong with age. I can see all the white hair in the room. I've got white hair. It's okay to have white hair. We're not embarrassed about it. It is what makes up real estate. It's who we are. But innovation generally doesn't come from somebody with white hair. That doesn't mean you can't dye your hair. You're not going to become more innovative when you dye your hair. Right? And I'm not saying that when you're old, you can't not use technology. I'm saying when you generally are speaking of a person who is 60 or 70 or 80, you generally don't want to reinvent the world and change the world. You generally want to play with your grandkids. Innovation usually comes from younger people. So it is hard to expect Coldwell Banker, that is a 100-year-old company, to be as creative as a Compass is or a Redfin is. There's a different structure. Not just the person leading the company, but the company itself. The one who's got a 100-year legacy. Now, being 100 years old doesn't make you bad. It just means that you're 100 years old. So live with the benefits of it, but understand that the limitations which comes with that. When you're young, you're inexperienced, but you're hungry and passionate. You want to rule the world. So understand that we have a lot of young companies, EXP, Compass, HomeSmart, Redfin, OpenDoor, Nextdoor, Purplebricks. I mean, there's just a lot of them. Now, we've always had innovation. Innovation is not just subject to this decade, but we have more of them now than we've had in the past. It's almost like a baby boom generation of new business models. There's just a lot of change. So I'm writing the history of real estate, and I've gone back to 1850. And you can see, oh, this year Wyckott's was founded. This year A.B. Halliday was founded. This year Coldwell Banker was founded. This year whatever company was founded. So you can see, there's been births always. We've always had new companies. We've always had innovation. But then you can see spurts. You can see periods of time where more things happen in a short period of time. So the reason is to go back and say, why? Why did something happen here but not here? And is it important? And can this be reproduced organically, or did it just happen? We don't know why it happened, but we don't know. Or are you going to say, I can see what's happening, there's a pattern, and it looks like it's reproducing itself. It looks like it's copying itself. Now, we know that the history can't tell us what's going to happen tomorrow, but most certainly we can learn some lessons from history. I mean, why would we ignore history? History works. So if we look at those stages, the question we should get to the final conclusion, and I mean, the best person for me to argue with is myself. I love spending hours in a boardroom arguing with myself, and I always lose. I mean, always against myself, I always lose. Because you're always trying to figure out, so why does it matter? Who cares? Am I sure I'm right, or is there an argument that will actually prove that I'm wrong? And I'm always trying to prove myself wrong. That's the coolest part. It's disappointing when you get it right? Then you do prove yourself to be wrong. But is the industry changing, and is there more change happening, and will we undergo the same change that allegedly a Harvard or a big school or a university or a Forrester or a Gardner or a McKinsey or whatever of those big companies, when they say it's happening to other spaces, is it really happening to us? Or is this just close your eyes and it'll all go away? Will Purplebricks just go away? Will Redfin just go away? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's here to stay. And I think it's here to stay. So what I think is that we are undergoing change, and my goal this morning is to show you how I substantiate that, why I believe that is to be true. I'm not selling you anything. So don't think that I'm here to try and convince you to do something. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I don't have no interest. My confidence level is very high. So you disagree with me, that's fine. Right? I'd love to say you're probably wrong, but I don't know that because we don't know what the future is. I can't predict the future any more than you can. So we're guessing. I'm guessing too, just like you're going to be guessing. So we're both entitled to an opinion. Your opinion is based on 2 hours of research. Mine's based on 20,000 hours of research. But we still can be wrong. I can still be wrong. But I believe that our industry is unequivocally in the middle of a shift, a stage, a cycle, a change. And I believe that we are probably about a third down the path. So that means, and I will show it to you this morning, I believe that that change, that path, that shift probably happened around about 2011, 2012, 2013. We're calling it 2012, but there's no clear line in the sand. It's just roughly the time in which companies such as Compass and Open Door and those companies started getting attention, started getting funding, started going larger, started going public, started getting outside VC companies. It's the time really which home services really expanded quicker and faster more than they did before. I mean, they've always done acquisitions, but to do Long and Foster and Ebby Halliday in the same year, I mean, they docked up almost $1 billion in cash for those 2 deals. I mean, who of you have $1 billion to buy 2 companies? We don't regularly do that. Nobody does that. Realogy doesn't even do that. Right? We've never sold companies for $500 million or $750 million. Those are all new, big moves. You know, that's like AT&T buying Sprint or Sprint buying Verizon. I mean, it's a significant aha. So I'm going to try and show you that we're roughly down there. So to get to that, I'm going to quickly talk about the outside industry first, just as a maybe 10, 15-minute background to position for you. Look at the date, and you'll see we've had some people, in this case, it doesn't matter who the CEO is, but it's the CEO of a fairly significant technology company at a certain period of time. And he said, we've learned and struggled for a few years figuring out how to make a decent phone. PC guys, meaning outsiders, are not going to come and just walk in. It sounds like a realtor talking, right? I've been at real estate now for 40 years. I know how it's working. I understand it. There's no Zillow or no outsider just going to come into my industry and come and walk in and take over my business. Tech guys don't understand how hard is real estate. Wow, sounds just like us. And look what happened to that guy, right? He had a market capitalization of that time when he said that statement of $53 billion. And in 2010, now he made the statement in 2010, 4 years later, he was defunct. Just for you to understand what is 53 billion. It's with a B, not with an M. 53 billion. 1,000, 3 zeros. Million, 6 zeros. Billion, 9 zeros. 5 and a 3 and 9 zeros. How big is that? Frickin' it's hell big. I mean, it's enormously big. Zillow's market cap only floats around about 5 or 6 billion. That's a tenth of that. Realogy's market cap generally floats around about 3 to 4 billion. That's less than a tenth of that. Redfin, which we all get so excited about, is only about 1.5 to 2 billion. That's 53 billion. That guy effed it up, screwed it up in 48 months. Gone. Now, no CEO does that deliberately. Every CEO has a responsibility, is appointed, has shares, has stock, and their goal is to be as successful as they possibly can for their company. So why did this guy get it wrong? Now, you would say, well, is he the only guy? Well, there's another guy. We know the Blockbuster guy. Neither Redbox or Netflix is even on my radar. Asshole, where were you looking, right? Now, with hindsight, it's easy to see. Well, couldn't you see that one coming? Now, he said that in 2008. At that stage, when he said in 2008, he had 9,000 stores, right? In 2018, so in a period of 14 years, he lost 9,000 stores. Those of you which have a calculator, try and take 9,000 divided by 14 and see how many stores he closed per day. 9,000 stores. Century 21 is the company which has the most stores at the moment in the United States of any real estate brand. They don't even have half that many stores. This is twice the number of stores of all Century 21 stores. As a matter of fact, the Realogy total is about 12,000. That's all Coldwell Banker and Century 21 and Sotheby's and ERA and BH&G is 12,000. We can't close stores fast enough to make that happen. It's not even possible. We have a 30-year track history with MLSs. We don't close them that fast. We close 36 a year. At that pace, this would take us about 300 years to consolidate the real estate industry to what this guy screwed up. So it is possible to lose and lose big. So we think that Realogy is untouchable. This just says, don't be overly confident. Doesn't mean that Realogy is under attack. There are many companies that were successful at the time, and they are still successful today. Best Buy made it through okay. Walmart made it through okay. Yeah, Borders and Barnes & Noble, one didn't make it, the other one's struggling. Circuit City didn't make it, Gateway did not make it, but you don't necessarily have technology that's going to restructure you. But here's just quickly 4 other examples. Excite passes on buying Google. So Google was offered to Excite. Do you even remember what Excite was? It was a search engine. In 1999, when we were worrying about Y2K, for $1 million, ABoR would buy Google today if there was offered to you for $1 million. Even if you didn't have the funds, and you do have the funds, but if you didn't have the funds, she would say, special. Every realtor put in $30 on the table. We're buying Google tomorrow for $1 million, right? Deal of the century. Google's market cap now is $700 billion. That is a 7 with 11 zeros. Excite turned the offer down. They said it's too expensive. In 2000, Blockbuster passes on buying Netflix. Netflix ran into cash flow problems. They couldn't pay payroll. They went to Blockbuster and said, buy me, please, for $50 million. Blockbuster said, who wants a company that's mailing CD-ROMs in the mail? That is so dated. I can do that if I wanted to do that, and I don't want to do that. I have stores. Right? Sounds like realtors again, right? I have a shop in the neighborhood, and I have a desk there with a carpet and a corner window and a red telephone. Really? You think that that's important? That is so 1972. Right, Netflix market cap now reached 125. Yahoo passes on buying Facebook for $1 billion. Facebook market cap's now 450. Yahoo declines an offer from Microsoft for $44 billion, and only last year they sold for 10 cents on the dollar. So Zillow could go from $4 billion to 400,000. Realogy could go from $4 billion to 400,000. I want you to understand that not one real estate company at the moment in this industry is safe. There is a war going on. And in a war, things get broken. Because people are shooting, people are dropping bombs, right? And you might be a casualty of war. Now, I don't think that our industry is going to go away. We are too big, too important, we do too many things. We are, as an industry, safe. The work you do is very, very important. You will still be paid for what you do in the future. You might be paid differently for a different task, and I might be giving a check to somebody else. It might not be you. But the transaction, the person, will still be there. They'll still be an association. They'll still be an MLS. But it's going to be changing in the mix. It's going to depend on, are you going to step up and be innovative and creative, or are you going to say, I'm going to let the chips fall where they fall? I don't care, because I'm 95, and I'm going to be retired in the next 2 years, and I don't care what happens in the next 3 years. But if you are under the age of 65, you better start caring super fast, because it's going to happen in your lifetime. I think we are close. Right, here are some companies that suddenly happen too quickly for them. You think, well, I've got 10 years to do this. Nope, you don't got 10 years anymore. There's too many things happening. So here are some companies that thought suddenly was a decade away. And when they noticed it, now none of these companies deliberately wanted to destroy their business. So I don't think that the owner of Berkshire Hathaway or Keller Williams or Realty Executives or Exit Realty wants to destroy their company. They all want their companies to succeed. And they're all doing what they believe is best. So did these. Now, with hindsight, we can say, well, clearly Kodak missed it. Xerox missed it. At the time, they didn't think they missed it. So now, let's get to a reason. Why do I think they missed it? The reason I think they missed it with hindsight. Now, I did not see it at the time. This is now with research going back. So it's taking a step back and now researching everything I can find about those companies. It would seem to me that it happened because it happened so fast they didn't see it coming. They thought they had enough time. The hurricane is coming, it's fine. I will move out the day before it happens. And then the hurricane turns or it comes faster. I will buy my earthquake kit one day when the earthquake is going to come, and then it comes suddenly, right? I will put money away and save for my old day one day when I'm old and I need the money, but I'm not going to save when I'm 23, because why would I save for my old day when I'm 23? Right? We tend to procrastinate. We tend to push things off. It's just human nature. These people did not see things coming that fast. So I thought I'd give you an indication of what is fast. Now, these things aren't exactly comparable, so there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in this, but take it for what it's worth, because I couldn't find better comparisons. An invention, which was created over 100 years ago, took about 75 years to get to 50 million users. Now, 50 million is not a magic number, it's just a number. I could have had 40, 100, doesn't mind. This is a meaningful number of people in the United States that is using X product, in this case, the telephone, X product. 50 million. It took from the day it was founded till 50 million users, approximately 3/4 of a century. Now, what is 75 years? That's basically, for most of us, a lifetime. That means you could have been born without the phone, and the phone really only became a mainstream product by the time you were in your golden years, right? It took a lifetime of change. So if you moved slowly, it was okay. You had a lifetime to accept something. The next invention, which was the television, which I took down, roughly took as long as you were at school. So no longer a lifetime the change took. It was discovered the day you started in grade 1, and by the time you got to grade 12, 50 million people, 50 million households, just about everybody had a TV. So that change did not take a lifetime. It took now what? Is that a quarter? A fifth of a lifetime. So it's much faster. The next one, the internet, only as long as you were in one school, middle school or high school, right? You were grade 8, by the time you were grade 12. So you could see it actually changed while you were in one location of education. No longer lifetime. It happens faster and faster. Now, the next one is not the same thing, but Angry Birds only took a month to get to 50 million. Now, again, the one revolutionized the industry and the one is just a game. I understand there's a difference. But can you see how the one actually builds on the other platform? The Angry Birds did not have to reinvent the internet or the television or electricity or the telephone. It was already there. They just popped something on top. We're already at that pop something on top. Our industry is already sophisticated. The MLS is already there. The associations are already there. Licensing and contracts and documentations and forms is already there. If I want to start a new real estate company, I don't have to reinvent real estate. I just have to come up with an idea and get it funded, and I can tweak it. Go to Inman News, get some publicity, and run with the story. Tomorrow, you all open your news at Inman News, and then you're scared. And suddenly you think, I'm taking over the world. That's how quickly we get a story out these days. It happens very fast. Now, you could say half the stories are empty. Yes, so half what we hear from the government might not be true. Half what we hear from the media might not be true. We've got accustomed to that. Some of it is true. Some of it is not. It's for you to try and distinguish between the ones which are right and wrong. And that's getting harder and harder to do. When you go look at a good movie, you're not sure what was acting and what was maybe a graphics that was added later on. You're not sure. Did that bomb really explode that big? Or was there something added to the bomb to make it explode bigger? You can no longer tell the difference. And that's the problem you have with your own industry. You can no longer tell the difference. You're too close. You're in the forest. You think everything is fine. Meanwhile, you're a little frog in boiling water. Right? And slowly somebody's turning it up. So here's just some examples of companies. Mercedes-Benz thought that their competitor was BMW. You can see it probably ended up being rather this. Walmart thought their competitor was this. Probably ended up being different. So who's your competitor? If you're currently today, doesn't mind, and I don't pick on a company to promote or degrade a company. When I'm putting it up, just use it as an example. So pick any company. If you're working for, where are we now, Texas? So, all right, Coldwell Banker United. If you're working for Coldwell Banker United, you might say, well, my competitor is Ebby Halliday. Your competitor might not be Ebby Halliday. Ebby Halliday might be in the same boat as Coldwell Banker United. Your competitor might be Redfin or Compass or Purplebricks. Or it might even be further than that. We might not even know who the competitor is. It might be Google or Zillow or something else. So often the velocity comes that somebody which you weren't expecting jumps into the game. We are right there at the moment for our industry. The next thing, if you want to move fast, you have to have money to be able to afford that. Most of us, as a rule, generally funded our own businesses with our back pocket. Blood, sweat, tears. Equity which we put in. It took a long period of time because you started on a nickel and a dime, you rubbed two things together, you made it through 3 recessions. The new guy who's 22 working from his garage, he doesn't care that you went through the 1946, 1962, 1968, 1982, 1994 recession. He doesn't care, right? In most cases, he wasn't even born at that time. But he stood up one morning, wrote something on a napkin and said, I have a dream. Here's my plan. Not even this big, it's half this big, right? Here's my plan. Change the real estate industry, revolutionize the transaction, save the consumer money. That's my dream. I go to somebody and I say, do you like my dream? The guy says, yeah, sure. Here's $100 million. Now this guy goes and he now has $100 million to execute his dream. You might have a better model, a more existing model, a current model, a profitable model, but the problem is you don't have $100 million. Now you might say he's going to make a mistake or I'm going to make a mistake. That's okay. If you have 100 million, I can afford mistakes. I can make 100 million of them, right, and still come out on top. So when you have a disproportionate amount of money, you can often do things that you normally can't do. When Walmart was building Walmart, they thought that the end thing was to have stores in every zip code. So they were building mega stores to be bigger than anybody so they could buy things cheaper. They thought being in your zip code was dominating location, location, location. Nobody ever taught them they should have planes until Amazon came across and said, well, I don't want to have a store. Why would I compete with you on your strength? Your strength is to have a corner store, have the biggest store. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to drop everything with drones and planes. So Amazon goes and creates Prime Air with 30 or 40 planes. Walmart didn't have a contingency plan for a plane attack. They had a contingency that if Kmart opened across the street, they would just take everything down 5% or 10% and just carry a loss as long as possible, loss leader, and just destroy you. They never planned that a drone was going to fly over. Now Amazon has gone and already secured marks of property across the land where they're going to build Amazon drone towers where the drones are going to go in and go and refuel and or regas and or recharge and or pick up packages. So guess what Walmart filed this year? Over 100 patents for drone delivery. It wasn't even on their radar 5 years ago. They outfiled Amazon this year in drone applications. Right? The battle changed. Didn't see it coming. Now they have to play catch-up. Can you play catch-up? Sure, it's just a little bit harder, but you can play catch-up. Catch-up's not impossible. Those of you which have your own company would appreciate, I mean, I've had my own company now 4 or 5 times. It's damn hard to build a business, and it takes many, many years. Look at these guys. What's up? 5 years, 50 employees, and they sold a business for $19 billion. In what world is that real? Reality's about $4 billion, Zillow's about $4 billion, Redfin's about $2 billion, Remax is about $1 billion. So that together is only $10 billion. I can buy all of Realogy, everything they have. Right? I can buy NRT, I can buy all of their toys, all of their brands worldwide. I can buy all of Remax, I can buy all of Zillow, I can buy, and that's only half of that. Realogy is over 200,000 people. This is 50. So whatever numbers you have in your head, scratch them. Because whatever you have is so yesterday. Don't come up with profitability or internal rates of return or I have to have a certain profit margin or I want a PE ratio of this or so many agents per. Those are all traditional old paradigm thinking. They did work in the past. They still work today. Nobody cares, however. Just simply, they don't play by those rules anymore. It's like you and me playing Monopoly and I make a chess move, and you say, what the hell are you doing? We're playing Monopoly. And I say, no, well, knight to queen's bishop 4. And you go like, this is a wrong game. No, well, I'm playing the game. You play whatever game you want. I'm playing another game. You can't do that. Oh, yes, I can do whatever I want to do. Right? They're not playing by your rules. They're making their rules up as they go. That's the hard part for you now to track. Because how to play against somebody who doesn't play fair? If you're Century 21 and you're competing against, I don't know, pick a company again, Better Homes and Gardens, they roughly play by the same rules. Or you get mad at the other broker from time to time because they left their board up over the weekend a little bit too long. Their board is 2 inches bigger and it's more green than it should be. We are so distracted with crap that the guy's coming down the street with a tank and we haven't even noticed and we're taking out a slingshot. So, look at this one. GM created value per employee, right? So they created economic wealth. And they are considered one of the most successful. I know they're not in their heyday. This is their heyday. This is their best day. So at one stage, they were creating about $250,000 economic wealth per employee, which was considered great. Look at Facebook's number. 20,500 million per employee. I mean, I can't even do a chart. I can't even compare it. There's no sense. So the rules have changed to such an extent that we need to understand. So here's a cool chart. Let me go back one. Go back one. Apple. So here, I thought I'd just give you an example. And now I'm going to jump to our industry because time is limited. Here's Apple. I did the calculation in May, and then I did it again in September. These values differ slightly. You can see the stock market went up. It probably now went down in the last week. But that doesn't matter. This represents approximately 800 billion, somewhere to 1,000 billion. 1,000 billion equals $1 trillion. So about $1 trillion in value. I thought, let me look at some other companies on the stock market, same date, same calculation, same EBITDA, same stock market, same calculation. And I just put them in there. And I haven't picked good ones or bad ones. I just put them in randomly. This is a kind of a techie company, so I put in a kind of techie companies. IBM, Intel, Texas, Qualcomm, Salesforce, did it all the way down, Xerox, HP. And here I put in their market caps. This total together equals that total. So here's one company which is worth more than Intel, IBM, Texas, Qualcomm, Salesforce, Adobe, Sony, Dell, HP, and Xerox combined. Now, we don't have that yet in real estate. We're not even close. So if you look at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services division, they're probably about 60 or 70% the value of Realogy. If you look at Zillow's market cap, it's almost about the same as Realogy. They fluctuate up and down. If you look at Remax's market cap and you look at Redfin's market cap, it's about comparable. And they're about half of what Realogy is. So there's maybe a 50% difference between some of the players. But they're roughly in the same ballpark. Compass has already raised so much money, they're now talking about a $4 billion valuation, which is probably too high. But if they were to get that, that would make them a Realogy, Zillow lookalike kind of size company. This guy is 10x, 20x. It would be like saying that Redfin is worth 10 Realogies. We don't have that yet. We haven't gone through that domination yet. And you can say, well, that's a unique example. No, I can find many. Amazon is worth more than Walmart, Target, or Target, as some of you call it, but Target, Macy's, Kroger, Nordstrom, Tiffany, Coach, Safeway, Best Buy, The Gap, Costco, and Home Depot combined. My wife loves Home Depot. I mean, Home Depot is considered in any book a successful company. It does well. It dominates its niche. It's taken out home base. It's competing fairly well against Ace Hardware. It's doing well. So these aren't failures. Costco is doing well against Sam's Club. I mean, it's a successful company, yet this equals that. These companies, in most cases, have been around what? 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years? The guy on the left started 2 decades ago. 2 men in a truck, right? Guy driving from New York across the country to Seattle came up with a dream. Now, you could say he's still struggling to make money. He's still not profitable. Yeah. Remember, the rules changed. Who said you had to make money? World domination does not require making money. It's a different rule. So it's just fascinating to see this in other spaces. So we would say, who's it going to be in real estate? Is it going to be somebody in real estate? Can it be somebody in real estate? I'll take bets now, right? 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1. So yeah, we have a bet in our office where we're already trying to figure out who it could be potentially. So it's hard to compete against somebody who, firstly, doesn't play by the rules, and secondly, has more money than you've ever seen or that you would have access to, which basically means that they can afford to do a mistake. Now, money isn't everything. We all know that. Money doesn't guarantee a win. You can screw things up with a big budget. But damn, it's useful. It's very handy to do that. So I cannot, when I look at all this research, I cannot ignore the fact that Compass is traditionally a traditional model. I mean, I'm still trying to struggle to find something new in Compass. I mean, it's still traditionally an existing model. But yes, it has some tech with it, which they're still building. In some cases, not finished yet. But they're building it. But they have the resources to build it. And they're probably going to keep on building it, which means that they'll probably build better whatever you have, because they've now raised $1 billion to build it. I mean, tell me you didn't spend $1 billion on your technology. No, you didn't, because nobody has. Even Zillow hasn't. Even Realogy hasn't. Now, Compass hasn't either yet, but they can. And they're claiming that they're going to, or they're going to try to. So unlimited capital. Right, so let's get to real estate. So I think that that suddenly part, which happened too quickly for the blockbusters and the palms, I think that suddenly really arrived in our industry this year. It's been building for a time, but I think it's here. I really think it's here. And there are enough proof examples which I think you can sort of substantiate that. So let me see if I can take you through the ones. I'm going to go back to the things I said before. So I said velocity outside our industry. So let's look at velocity inside our industry. Inside our industry, I think we've had the same speed to market almost. So what I did is I tried to find examples to show you. I took 10,000 agents. Again, not an important number. I had to put a number up there. You can put any number up there. 10,000 just sounded like a nice round number. How many companies do you know in real estate that have got to 10,000 agents? I mean, that is a very big number in our industry. So that means it's a small list. So I went and looked at, I said, Coldwell Banker, in my opinion, one of the 3 or 4 best companies in the world in real estate. Huge amount of successes. They've done lots of things very, very well. You can point to them and say, check, check, check. Great company. It took them roughly 7 decades to get to 10,000 agents. How long is 7 decades? Do you remember the telephone? A lifetime? So that's about a lifetime. Now, there's nothing wrong with a lifetime. Sometimes people are late bloomers. That's okay. Don't criticize it. But I want you to understand, the company was founded a long time ago, and it took them a long time to get to it. Then a company which was created a good 60, 70 years after them, which was considered the more recent phenomenon, which happens to be an Austin-based company, they only took 18 years. 18 years almost sounds like, remember the next invention, the 13 year, the telephone kind of stuff? So this went from telephone to TV. This sounds like TV-ish, right? 18 sounds like somebody who was in school for a little bit longer than he should have. But I mean, it sounds like a school term, right? So it's a 2-decade instead of a 6, 7-decade. So you can see the momentum. But Keller Williams got to that number. Now you can say, well, Keller Williams grew slowly initially. Well, Coldwell Banker was created, with the earthquake in San Francisco, which was difficult times. So everybody has their own excuses. I'm trying to look past the excuses. I'm trying to look past the successes. I'm just saying, statistically, you opened your company, how long did it take you to get to Mark X, whatever Mark X is? Then I took another more recent company that was formed just the other day. EXP has now passed 10,000 agents, and it only took them 8 years. So you can see how that graph is going down, down, down. That does not mean that I believe that EXP is better than Keller Williams and Keller Williams is better than Coldwell Banker. I'm not saying that. Don't read things into what I'm not saying. I'm saying circumstances around you have changed, which have enabled companies to move faster than the previous generation of companies could do that to achieve the same success. I do think it's possible that a new company could get to 10,000 today within, let's say, 4 years. Not because they're the best, because the vehicles, the circumstances is already there, which will enable you to do that. Now, you might say to me, well, headcount is not everything. Concur. We agree with that. So I thought, all right, let me look at dollar volume. So I picked a number again. Again, I can pick any number. I picked 10 billion, a line in the sand. How many companies do you know that have reached 10 billion? Probably you don't even know any. It's a big number in annual sales. So I found a few companies that did it. So there you can see Wyckott's, Long & Foster, Howard Hanna, or Hanna Holdings, Douglas Elliman, William Ravis. It took most of them 4 to 6 decades, for 40, 50, 60 years. Most of them founded their company at around about the Second World War, just after the Second World War. So if you look at their history, most of them were founded in the 40s and the 50s. And most of them only reached this kind of number in the last 5 to 10 years. That's taken time to get to that. So I thought, are there any new companies that have done it? Companies which were formed after 2000, Redfin, Realty One, Compass, and HomeSmart, they've already reached 10 billion, and they only took 5 to 15 years. Can you see the pace has picked up? Not just outside our industry, with the telephone and the Angry Birds, inside our industry. I don't think for a second that these companies are better than any one of those companies. I have looked at all of those companies. They are all well-run, well-managed, effective, efficient, and profitable business. All of them, every single one of them. I'm not sure I can say that about the ones at the bottom yet, right? Their history is still relatively young, but they are growing like weeds. They're growing fast. So you can grow agent count and dollar volume in a sixth of the time. So decisions which you used to take 6 months to do, you got to now do it in 60 days. Things that you usually had on an agenda, which you would leave for a year on your agenda to float around, you're not going to do it this quarter. Because if you don't, your competitors are moving around you. They're not standing still. Your competitors will not be where you think they are tomorrow. They'll move, and they are moving. All right, next one. Velocity. Just some examples. Compass, again, I'm not promoting any company. I'm not degrading any company. So don't see it as a promotion. Remember, from a stats point of view, from a fact point of view, I don't care who's won. It makes no difference to me. Then for me, they're placeholders. So Compass buys Pac Union, probably with that acquisition. Compass was, at the time of the acquisition, according to my calculation, doing about 14 billion a year in sales. Pac Union was doing almost exactly the same. When you combine the two together, assuming that they do not have big breakage, we don't know yet what their breakage is. It does not look like it's going to be big, but we don't know that yet. We'll only know by December when the audited numbers come in. But if they don't have big breakage, their combined book will be about 28 billion. Assuming that they have done other activities as well, they're probably going to be about 30 billion by the end of the year. Currently, the number 3 biggest company in the United States only does 26 billion. So just with the acquisition and few breakage, let alone organic growth, the chances that Compass becomes the 3rd biggest company in the United States by this December is almost guaranteed, almost guaranteed. Redfin, they did not take their money to go buy another company. They took money to build a website and a cool app. Arguably the best app in the industry. One could argue it's close to maybe a Zillow app or something like that, but it's a damn cool app, right? Now, it's an expensive app. They spend a lot of money on it, But within a few years, they have now become a top 5 brokerage. Again, brokerage, you can measure by offices, by agents, by profitability, by sales volume. Hard to do profitability because nobody wants to share their real numbers, right? Everybody's lying. Nobody wants to tell you the truth, not even to the tax person. We can do agent count, we can do office count, but the best number seems to be sales volume, right? It's the closest number to, if you were running your business well, we probably should be making roughly the same margin if we're all doing it well. If you're not doing it well, then I shouldn't be looking at you in any event. So we look at sales volume, and based on sales volume, I think Redfin's going to be number 5 in the nation. EXP recruits 10,000 agents in 1 year. There's only 3 companies that have ever been able to do that: Century 21, Remax, and Keller Williams. So EXP is only the 4th company ever in the history to be able to recruit 10,000 agents in 1 year. Guys, that's a lot. Do you know how much that is? Try and calculate it for a second. Right? So that's roughly 8,000 a month. That's roughly 2,000 a week. That's roughly 400 a day. It's roughly 200 a morning. 200 a morning, every morning, 5 days a week. Right. I'm not saying they're great. I'm just saying that momentum, the wheels have to come off at some stage. It's just a lot. The infrastructure struggles usually to catch up, right? That probably will make them this year a top 10 company. Okay, capital. So do we have money in our industry as well? We know that we have it outside when we looked at Amazon and Apple and some of the other examples. So I thought I'd quickly give you an indication of our industry. Let's skip over that slide just because I want to get to where I want to get. Is this slide? Yeah, there's the one I want. So here are, let me go back. Here are some of the capital investments which have been made into our industry in the last roughly 18 months to 24 months. The individual numbers are not important. The individual companies are not important. Just wanted to give you an example. But look at these numbers. This is, this is almost half a billion, almost half a billion. This is $250 million. I'll show you in a second what you could buy for $250 million. Remax, which I consider also one of the best companies that have ever been in the industry, which has also been around 40 years, when they went public, what was it, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, their market cap was not even $1 billion. Here, Compass, 400, 500, 900, $1 billion. If you just add that up, that's about $1.2 billion. Just the amount of money that Compass has received from outsiders as an investment is more than the entire market cap of the entire Remax worldwide when it went public 3 years ago. They didn't sell Compass. When they sold this, the person who put down that $400 million only got 10%. Most of you, if not all of you, will sell your company for $400 million in a blink. You'll probably sell me your spouse with that, right? I mean, $400 million is a lot. I can probably buy most of your companies combined for $400 million. This guy started his business 7 years ago and he sold 10%. Completely warped, right? Screwed up. Makes no sense. Don't try and understand it because I can't. I've tried to figure it out. So they are not buying value. They are buying opportunity. They're buying potential. They're buying the future. They're not looking at existing anythings, not per agent, per volume, per number, per transaction, per EBITDA, nothing, none of that. They're looking at future. And they're betting. I'm putting my money on 17 red. Close my eyes, spin the wheel, right? I don't know if I'm going to win, but if I am going to win, I'm going to get 35 to 1. If I put down $400 million and I get the winning horse and I get 35 to 1, I'm going to get back so much money, I don't care if I lost money on other bets. That's what they're doing. They're betting on the potential. So then I took that chart. Now, I put there a number, 15 billion. Remember when we talked about Palm, it was 53 billion? This is only a third, maybe a quarter of 53 billion, so it's much less. Remember how much was Apple? Remember, 800 billion. This is only 15. So this is a teeny-weeny number. This is 1/10 of Costco, 1/10 of Home Depot. But I asked myself, what could you buy if you had that? Now, I'm going to put up some numbers here. If you do take a photo, just don't go and publish it for the simple reason that none of these companies are for sale, right? I'm not saying that these are what these companies are worth. What I did is I tried to go and take the market cap of the companies which are public, the Remaxes, the Zillows, right? Redfins, Realogy. I tried to take those which are public. Then I extrapolated their numbers and I looked at their agent count, their office count, and their sales volume. And I transferred that over and I said, how much would a company like a Keller Williams, that is a private company, which I don't know if Gary would sell his company. The answer is probably not, knowing Gary, right? It's not for sale. But if you had to estimate, what is it? It can't be worth 10 times more than Realogy. It can't be worth 10 times more than Remax. If it is roughly the size of Remax, it has to be roughly the value of Remax. If it is twice the size of Remax, it has to be roughly twice the size. And because those estimates really prove the point, it doesn't matter if Realogy or if Keller Williams is worth $1 billion more or less. I kid you not. $1 billion in this argument has no impact. Has no impact. I'm trying to show you how warped it already has become, and I don't think the warpingness has started yet. So I said to myself, if I had a 15 billion, you've just won the lotto. You've just won the lotto. I'm writing you a check. Here's a check. 15 billion. Only condition is you have to spend it within the next 10 seconds, and you can only buy real estate companies, right? What would you go out and buy? Ask yourself that question. What would you buy if I gave you 15 billion and you could buy anything in real estate? I said to myself, I would start at the top, buy the biggest and the best, and work down the list and see how far I get. This is how far I got. I could buy all of Realogy, all of Coldwell Banker, all of Century 21, all of Sotheby's, all of ERA, all of Beard Gardens, all of NRT, all of Corcoran, all of Zip, all of Climb, all of Remax, all of Keller Williams, all of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, which includes the Dyno, blah, 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 blah. And then I would still have money left, and I would buy independents such as Baird & Warren and Cry Like a Douglas Elliman and Howard Hanna and blah, 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 and Simpson Klein. And I could buy all of that for approximately $15 billion in value, give or take $1 billion. Who's going to fight about $1 billion between friends, right? It's not going to make any difference to calculation. Or I could buy only that. I could buy Zillow, Redfin, Compass, Opendoor, and EXP. Those 5 on the right-hand side, their market cap combined today, roughly. If they have a market cap, if they don't, I took their last round of funding numbers. Is worth 15 billion. So now that you have an answer, I'm giving you the check again. Would you buy the right-hand side, or would you buy the left-hand side? Huh? And it is, for some, a hard question to answer, because you would argue, fairly, that the left-hand side has got way more assets, it's bigger, it's more profitable, it's more household name. You could argue that it's making more money today, you get a better return on your dividend. You could go to the other side, you could say, but this is the future, this is Amazon, this is Apple, this is tomorrow. But yet they're not quite profitable yet, but I think I'm going to take a shot on the 15 billion. So it's a hard decision to take. I don't think that the one side is going to take out the other side. It's not a winner-takes-all race. So don't see it as good or bad or good or evil or end of times. Now, there is no question that some of these companies in here will not be around the same way that we lost the gateways and the circuit cities, but that's life. Unfortunately, people die in car accidents, right? It's going to happen. We will have casualties of war. We could also have a casualty of war here. There is no reason that Realogy can't maybe make an offer and take out EXP and make EXP a subsidiary. It's possible. I'm just saying that today, 5, roughly 50 companies. Look at the difference already, right? It's already at a kind of a 10x value. Now, the shares in most of these companies, like that one which is public, that one which is public, this if you buy the holding company, is probably depressed. I know the whole stock market is depressed, but their shares are depressed because the people are already saying, the noise which is being promulgated by this is so powerful, I am going to change the industry, that people are already discounting the value of these companies. So these companies are probably today cheaper than they actually should be, because people are already believing the message. Now, Redfin is still not profitable every month. If you look at their financials, you'll see that in November, December, January, February, when it's snowy and it's cold and they do less sales, they don't make money. But then again, do you think that all of these companies make money every single month? Cyclical. Our industry is cyclical. There are times which we really make a lot of money. It's usually spring and summer, and winter usually slower, especially in the places where it tends to snow, and there's no open houses in Canada in December because nobody comes. So it impacts Redfin, but it impacts just about everybody else. It is fascinating that we've been able to see this happen in such a short period of time. So I think that that is causing the shift. The speed and the money by which the speed is pushed. And it is everywhere. So I think that this shift is going to have consequences. So let me see if I can put you in a spot where we are. Remember this chart? When I said that there's been enough study which says there's a stage, a cycle, a growth, up, down, right? So if we are, according to me, I think in this quadrant, the question is, what stage are we in? So what I've done is, I went back the last 100 years and I said, let me try and see if there's any indication that there have been stages before. Because I say that's a rose, that doesn't make it a rose. But if I can prove with you in Wikipedia and 20 catalogs and 20 examples that that is a rose, then there's some kind of substantiation for that. So the fact that I think there's a stage or a cycle doesn't mean there is one. Can I prove that there's one? So I went back the last 100 years, roughly, and I found that there were different times. I'm just giving you the summary. Now, I'm currently writing a book. Emily actually asked me about it. I'm going to call it The DNA of Real Estate, and I hope to publish it Q1 or Q2 next year, which is the history of real estate. I'm going to try and put down every single important thing that happened in our industry in the last 150 years into the shortest possible, concisest book I possibly can, in just bullet format. No commercials, and I'll give it out free. My intention is not to make money out of it. My intention is to get you guys educated, to understand where you're coming from. So, but in part of that study, this is the initial findings which we had, is that you will see that there have been periods of time, and these are roughly the lengths of those time. It seems that they are about a decade and a half, 14, 15, 16, 17 years roughly, and that they usually started at a certain time, usually as a result of something, and then they usually ran up till something else happened again. Sometimes that thing happening was either a depression, a world war, a baby boom generation, an S&L crisis. Often there was something that expedited it. And this is what basically roughly was the most dominant feature that happened in that time. So you'll see the roaring 20s, depression, the Second World War, the birth of all the baby boomers, the enormous franchise boom. I mean, if you take, for argument's sake, 1969. How many franchises did we have in real estate in 1969? Zero. Nothing. 1972, Century 21 is launched, ERA is launched, RE/MAX is launched, Realty World is launched, Red Carpet is launched, Gallery of Homes is launched. In 1 year. 2 years later, they've opened up over 10,000 franchise offices in 3 years. So we went from 0 to 10,000 in 36 months. Right? Things have happened. So, and this was every time the consequence that happened from it. So from the baby boomers, we had new brands. People which were born in that time, the Wycotts, the Long & Fosters, the Dave Linigers, the Gary Kellers, the people that were born in that period of time, which are maybe considered that, they created new brands, and they brought us McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's. They started all those, and of course they started the equivalent in real estate. Then when they started all these companies, they wanted to go from Austin or from Denver, nationwide. They used that as the vehicle, and over a period of about 10 or 15 years, they went on a national expansion from coast to coast. Century 21, just using them as an example, did not exist one day. 3 years later, it was the biggest company in the world. Right? So just out of nothing. So when we look at Compass and say, could they do it again? Well, sure. If Century could do it 30 years ago, if Keller could do it 20 years ago, why could Compass not do it, or EXP not do it? I mean, it's been done more than once before. Then, when they became national or large, Wall Street said, when you were in Austin or Denver or Mission Viejo, California, I didn't notice you. But now that you're suddenly 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 offices, come to Papa. Now that you've got all these offices, now that you've got all the outlet, what happened is corporate America stepped in the 1980s. And within a matter of 5 years, every single one of the major companies at that point in time, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Prudential, Merrill Lynch, Better Homes and Gardens, were all acquired by a Fortune 500 company. And they all became corporatized. So when we now say Realogy is involved, this is the first time it's happened. No, it happened 40 years ago. When corporate America got in, they said, now that I have all these toys, I have all these thousands of companies, I've got to automate this sucker. I've got too many things, I have no idea. I didn't realize that realtors were so disorganized. I have to automate all of this. And suddenly we became a race to go everything online. We started the Top Producer and the Great Plains and the software for the office and the accounting and franchising software and reporting structures. We started all this race to try and get everything automated. As a result of everything automated, we basically got to the internet era, that everything we had, we moved from an offline environment to an online environment. Again, it took us roughly about a decade and a half. Once we had everything on the online model and we had listings now available, now you can do, as you guys already know, the contracts and the DocuSign and the showing times and the forms and everything's online. We now look at the model and say, but this model is old. It's actually an old, off-dated, offline 1970s model that was automated. If I actually look at the model clean and fresh, I probably would build something new. I wouldn't build a real estate company today the way the Berkshire Hathaway or Coldwell Banker looks like. When it was built appropriately. It was built for a different era. Now that we've automated it, I would probably build it differently. The same applies to the association. The same applies to the MLS. Your association wasn't built for today. It was built for a previous lifetime. It made it to today. Many didn't make it today. It did make it to today. So now how do you change it? So now people are saying, great, I'm going to innovate everything I can. That's where the races come from. So I believe that the internet era ended And I say ended, it doesn't mean it went away. Roughly about 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, meaning it's there, we use it every day, but it's not the single most important thing you talk about. I mean, do you tell everybody every day when you text and tweet? No, but 10 years ago you did. There was a time it was cool to tweet every day, right? Now we don't do it anymore. So it becomes more mainstream. So we all do Facebook and tweet and Instagram from time to time. We still do use all email. We all do use DocuSign. But you don't run to your agent and say, guess what? I just signed a document online. Ooh, I'm so excited. But we did that 10 years ago. Now it's common practice. So now people are saying, well, why isn't DocuSign part of Google, which is part of Redfin, which is part of whatever, right? I mean, now that people are saying, let's move the pieces together. So we are now starting this new one, where we want to create new business models because we want to re-engineer the entire process from top to bottom. We don't want to make agents and brokers go away. We want them to talk differently, walk differently, function differently, operate differently, be differently. We want to streamline the transaction. We want to streamline the business. We want to streamline the association, the MLS. Not because it's bad, because it's dated, that's all. Because speed has changed everything around us. We have to update ourselves. So we believe that roughly 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we started on this new thrust, which has been driven by a huge amount of capital, which I've already shown you come into the industry. So in every decade, not every decade, every one of those cycles, those stages, there has been winners which have been created. And the winners don't end. When you were Century 21 was the first company ever to reach 100,000 agents. They might not be top of mind awareness today, but they are still a very, very, very credible, very large, very respectable business. The second company to pass 100,000 was Remax, then Coldwell Banker, and then Keller Williams. We've only had 4 that have ever reached 100,000 agents. And every one of those, although they at one stage reached 100,000, they are still a household name. They are all still big. So you'll see out of that period, that stage, the winners of that time were really those companies. When corporate America stepped in, those were the winners. I mean, can you believe that Hilton Hotels at one stage owned a real estate company? Trans World Airlines owned a real estate company. And I say a company, I don't mean insignificant, I mean one of the big 5. They thought that when you fly, you're also going to buy a plane. Yeah, how did that work out for you, right? Sears thought you would walk past the pots and the pans and the lawnmower to the back of the office and go take out insurance with Morgan Stanley and Dean Witter and buy real estate from Coldwell Banker. There was at one stage 325 Coldwell Banker offices in a Sears stores physically located. How did that work for you? Right? So real estate is fickle. It's a tough industry. It's unique. But it doesn't mean people haven't tried things. Some worked, some didn't work. Here you can see HFS. They were the first company to buy multiple brands. Before we said you can only be married to one wife at a time. Right? HFS said, no, I want more than one wife. Right? I want to have multiple. And we said, no, but my things are trade secret. Until we found out that the same corporate manual was written by the same consultant, basically, and the manual and the training systems are the same. We're in the same industry. There is not that a big difference between the brands. We are fundamentally the same people. We all sit around this table. We are the same family. We all have little, small, local nuances and adaptations, and we all do things a little differently. But fundamentally, we are the same. HFS proved that. They have bought up 5 brands subsequently, added another 3 which they're now growing, so they have 8 brands which they're managing, and they use one accounting system, one technology system, one HR, one personnel, one set of forms. Everything has been standardized. So that was a shift in our industry. We didn't think it could be done before. Then the technology players which came in, and then of course the new players. So in every stage, there are some people which rocket to the top. Sometimes the ones which are at the top then get moved out. Sometimes they stay there. All right, so what's my takeaway for this? What do I believe is the lesson which I think we can walk away with? Firstly, too fast. I think that innovation, which means speed, capital, and change, innovation as a total, I think is everywhere. I can find no indication that it is a fad. I can find no indication that it's short-term. I can find no indication that it's going to go away. According to me, it is here in spades, and I think it's going to be here in spades for a number of years still to come. So change is here. Don't think that all change is good. I'm not saying that. There are changes which I think are bad, poor, not well thought through, not yet tested. But the fact that something's not tested doesn't mean that somebody's going to try. And somebody who has the capital to try something against you will have an impact on you, even if he or she fails. So I don't have to succeed to beat you. Right? I can still do something which will upset you, or destroy your market share, or harm you, or have you to just give up. So the first step is don't give up. Don't get scared. Accept the change for what it is. Understand it more. Don't willy-nilly it. Don't ignore it. And don't think that it is necessarily all something that you think you already know how it works. Because firstly, you don't know how it works. And if you do, they're changing all the time. So even when Redfin or Compass or EXP or Zillow tries a model, they'll try it actually, and they will test it. And how I know that is they often come to us as a consulting company and tell us they're going to test it. And I know that one of the companies which I've just mentioned have put out press releases just to see what the industry is going to do to respond. They don't even know if it's going to work. They just want to see how bad the backlash is going to be and can I handle it. Number 2, change is occurring at a very fast speed. It does not mean that you have to worry about this afternoon. You're okay with this afternoon. You're probably okay with this week. But what I'm trying to say is you no longer have the time or the luxury to refer things to the PAG, Presidential Advisory Committee or group, right? And we'll put it on next year's agenda. So why don't we, I think I'm going to tell my director who could maybe find up the flag post, who could maybe tell the president, who's maybe going to whisper in Emily's ear so that she maybe considers to put it on the next agenda for the next meeting, which is every second month. And then maybe if we have time at the end of the agenda, we'll get it under the others item. And then maybe we can get a Presidential Advisory Committee so we can maybe send a letter to Bob Goldberg at NAR so they can maybe put it on the NAR agenda so maybe next year at the meeting we can discuss it. By that time, Zillow is clean shop, right? I've been at some of these companies where something happens, let's say something comes in on Inman News, great news source, right? Comes in, it's here. The story I've just discussed, tongue-in-cheek a little bit, is, let's say, the NAR route, right? Not exactly, but NAR route. At Zillow, that message comes in, Spencer Raskoff says, hey, Amy, get the team together. 10 minutes later, you have 10 people in a boardroom, happens to be that their boardroom has no chairs, right, for a purpose. Everybody stands around a table and says, what's it, boss? I just read in Inman that the sky is falling in. Wow, interesting. What do you think about it? What are we going to do about it? Can we do something about it? What's your plan? Do you have budget? Are you going to do marketing? How strong is your social media? Do you have people at the moment available? How strong is your sales team? What currently is the focus of our budget, right? I mean, within a minute, they go through all the stuff, and then they say, okay, all right, I think we should use your sales team to take his product. You've got the budget. Let's run with the campaign tomorrow on TV. Let's run the spots which you already booked, which we're going to do the other campaign. We'll just flip it out. By that Thursday or that Friday, they're moving on stuff. We haven't even sent that email yet to go to the agenda, to go to the PAG, to go to the committee. Now, we are a different organization. They're profit-driven. We're not profit-driven. We are an association. We are a representative organization that represents our members. We have to take different kinds of decisions. I have been in Emily's chair. I understand that. But we have to think more business-like. We have to be more business-minded because the people we are competing with are not going to give us a second chance. And unfortunately, when you move fast, you will make mistakes. If you don't make any moves, if you take a long time, well, then you probably won't make a mistake because you haven't done anything. There will be times which your association might have to do, or your MLS might have to do things which you've never done before. That's hard. It's tough. You're not going to get everything right. But you guys are smart as a collective. You are committed as a collective. This is your town as a collective. This is your association as a collective. You've got the one to lose. The outsiders have nothing to lose. They're going to keep on poking the bear, right? Time for you to wake up, slap him back, right? It's time to take the position. Right, next one. 3, the re-engineering of the industry is real and significant. I think people that have done it before have used it as a scare tactic. I honestly don't want to do that. I'm here to say that I'll be here when it's all done and said. I'm here to stand with you if you want me to. But don't let them outplay you. I don't think realtors are going to go away. I don't think brokerage companies are going to go away. But we have at the moment 53,000 brokerage companies that have less than 3 people. 53,000 less than 3 people. How do you make money with less than 3 people? You know, so that is not a company, that is a job. Right? You're basically working for yourself as a sole proprietor. And that's okay, because it's been okay forever. At the moment, that's not the game EXP is playing. That's not the Compass game. That's not the open door game. So they're trying to change the rules. Right, some of you, I just publications quickly, and then we're going to get, I'm not even halfway yet. My time's not up, right? I still got time? Oh, there's time. I haven't seen that time yet. I got 22 minutes. Good job. All right. So some publications. This one is our latest summary. I see one or two of you got a copy today. It really was only published. I'm not even sure how Emily got her hands on it. It really only came out on Monday. It usually comes out on the 1st of February every year, and many people, like you guys in associations, have asked us to rather try and come out in December because it's more the kind of thinking, planning time. That book, the one on the right-hand side, which I strongly recommend you read, not only because I'm going to make money out of it, but because I promise you, if you've read it and you tell me that you knew everything in the book and you didn't learn anything and it's not valuable, I promise you I'll give you your money back, no questions asked. There is 600 hours of my blood in that. I talk fast, I think fast, I work fast. There's 600 hours, 200 pages. There's not one commercial in there. There's no ads. There's no sponsorship. Nobody paid a penny to get anything in there. What's in there is what I honestly believe that is currently the most topical, important things. It's not a blog. It's not a post. It's not going to be available in another format. It's only available in this format because realtors steal, right? So I can't give it to you in another format. Otherwise, you just give it to everybody. No, I'm kidding. But no, I love the industry. Read the damn book if you care about the industry. It is not a continuation of the danger report, of course, but it is in the same style. It's trying to identify what's important to us. All right, so here I did a quick comparison, and then I'm going to get to a set of videos for you to soften the punch. Here is just a list for you what I did, so side-by-side comparison. The 20 biggest companies in our industry. Now, I do it all the way down to 1,000. But here's on the left-hand side. The left-hand side is brokerage companies. Brokerage companies is defined by one boss, one license, one ownership, one company where everybody basically works for the same organization. There's one ownership, there's one budget, there's one point of final control. So the biggest company we have in the country is called NRT, acronym for National Realty Trust. It is a subsidiary of Realogy. It basically owns mainly all the Coldwell Banker stores which are owned by corporate. So it's the companies which you will know as Coldwell Banker Residential Real Estate. They did acquire United Real Estate, which is the largest Coldwell Banker subsidiary in the state of Texas. Second, Home Services is the subsidiary of Warren Buffett. It is part of their organization. They have done just about the same amount of acquisitions as NRT. They're earning around about the same. NRT tends to do more. They've done maybe about 1,100. Home Services has done less, but they do bigger ones. The biggest ones of Home Services in recent times is the ones I mentioned, Long & Foster, but Indina, Intero are examples of companies which they've purchased. They tend to keep the local name. So Ebby Halliday, they in most cases are going to try and keep the local name for as long as they possibly can. Then you'll see this list is as at the end of last year, which we have financials for. So here you'll see Douglas Elliman is at 26. I told you that the acquisition of Compass of Pac Union, which you will see is located here. So there's Pac Union at 14, there's Compass at 14. If you add those two 14s together, it'll be larger than the 26, and that doesn't even allow for organic growth yet. But assuming that the organic growth of Douglas Elliman and the organic growth of those two together, probably the same, they both maybe should be up $1 billion. But I think Compass is going to be around about 30 billion would be my guess for this year for sales volume. But anyways, this gives you the brokerage companies. Here gives you the franchisors. In the US only, Canada excluded and global excluded. And the only reason we've excluded them is because we can't get accurate numbers which we can verify. These we could verify. So if you add Canada with, then RE/MAX would be number one. If you add global together, RE/MAX would still be number one. So Keller Williams bigger than anybody else at the moment in the US, but not bigger if you include other areas and territories as well. The reason Keller Williams has not expanded internationally for such a long period of time as the others have. Places like RE/MAX, Coldwell Banker, ERA, Century 21 already expanded internationally in the early 90s. Keller Williams probably started about 4 years ago, roughly. So they have maybe 20 years to play catch up. RE/MAX is already in about 110 countries. I think Keller is probably in about 30 countries, of which probably 15 were signed so recently that you can't get numbers yet because there's nothing there yet. So it's hard to sometimes get that apples and apples comparison. This is the closest I can get to an apple. So this is my cheat sheet on my computer when I talk to somebody, right? So this is our biggest franchisors. You can see single company, 178 billion in a year. Keller Williams about 300 billion. You can see how quickly it drops off. So up number 6, this is almost 100 billion. So that's about 100 billion plus. Look how quickly it drops, 36 down to 2. So we only really have about 5 or 6 or 7 franchises that matter. Otherwise it becomes smaller much quickly. Here the same, only 2 companies over 100 billion. All other companies are 100 billion behind. So yes, Compass is number 3, but I'm still 4 times bigger than you are. So sniff that, right? It's still a big difference. And then if you add everything together, holding companies, franchises, company-owned stores, everything together to try and figure out, right, where's ownership? If I follow the final dollar up the totem pole, then Realogy is unquestionably number one, almost double the size of Keller Williams, $508 billion. And you can see, again, look at the first four. Almost $200 billion, almost $300 billion, 300, 400, and then it just drops off, Windermere and down. So our industry has not yet consolidated to the level I think it could or should or will. I think we ain't seen nothing yet. I think we will see another few major acquisitions. It's just going to be a question of who would like to go play with their grandkids first. Right? Because if somebody's going to give you money to go play with your grandkids forever and a day, meaning 9 figures, why would you not take it? You want to be stubborn and hold out and then lose your business because a new model is going to disintermediate you and maybe make your business go down? Why would you not take the 9 figures when you still can? But if our market is going to go down economically wise, it's going to be tough, so prices might come down a little bit. Here's just a quick few summaries for you just on a few of the new companies. Compass, probably be number 3 on the list when we do the list in January. Annual volume, I'm guessing 28 to 30 billion. They have, at this point in time, around about approaching 4,000 agents. Just to give you a snapshot. And these numbers, they're published in the book as well. They're in this. So if you get the trends report, I have a one-page summary on each of these companies. This is just bullet points. Redfin, probably number 4 on the list. Sales volume last year approaching 22.5 billion. They have less agents. Remember, their model is not number of agents like the Keller Williams EXP model is. Their model is employees. So those people are all salaried, with the average agent probably getting about $42,000 in base pay plus bonuses on top of that. The top agents all making more than 6 figures. So it's just a different structure. But I mean, their average agent does about 40 transactions a year. How many of you have that your entire team does 40 a year? I mean, you're lucky if your top agents get to 40, right? 40 is a good number. Their entire team does 40. 40 is an average number, not a good number, it's an average number. So it's a different structure, not the same. Market cap about 1.5 billion. I could put that in because it's a public company. It, of course, changes every week. Realty One, probably our fastest growing franchise at the moment. They're on track to probably sell about 100 franchises this year. So they are currently number 7 on the list. They're probably about as high as they can be at this point in time because the guys above them are very well entrenched. Sotheby's, Keller Williams. So they've grown very rapidly to get to that spot, but even if they add another 100 franchises, there's not a lot of room to get up because the guy above you has 1,000 already more than you have. But they're doing very well. They will definitely break 10,000 agents this year easily, and that number might climb. I'm guessing that number might actually approach 14 or 15 billion because of all the additions which they're adding. I'm trying to find out what they're adding. It seems that it's a lot of RE/MAX franchises which they're adding, former RE/MAX companies. But there's a good mix in it. Next one, EXP. They're adding agents like weeds. At this point in time, when I did an audit on them last year, they were at 6,500 agents. When I audited them about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were already double that, 14,000 agents. I think they'll break the year probably about 15,000 agents. They're getting agents from everywhere, but it seems to be mainly Keller Williams agents, predominantly. The mindset between Keller Williams and EXP is very, very comparable, very similar. Keller Williams agents find a home in this company very easily. They were 23 last year based on sales volume. I'm pretty sure that they're going to get close to number 10 this year. So somewhere between number 9 to number 12 based on this growth. Because although this is a headcount growth, when you add that number of agents, your sales volume and stuff will follow with that as well. So it's going to be pretty quickly. They were listed on NASDAQ this year, and their market cap floats between about 800 million. They have now passed over $1 billion once or twice, but then they dropped back down. But still, 800 million is, you could buy the entire Long & Foster for that. You can buy the entire Wyckott's for that. That's how big the number is. It's a big number. You could buy Ebby Halliday 4 times over for that, right? It's a big number. HomeSmart, they were number 11. I think they might creep up 1 slot. They're a little bit slower in growth because they're more methodical, but they are now expanding. They generally don't expand through franchising. They're probably going for company-owned stores. They did an acquisition of, Cherry Creek up in Denver not too long ago. I know they would like to do some more in some other cities at the moment. Sales volume is that. I'm guessing it'd probably be closer to 12 this year. The agent count was most certainly past 10,000 by the end of this year. If I look at these companies and I try and compare them side by side just quickly, and the report carries it in more detail. If somebody has a report, you can go to chapter number 1. And those of you which don't have a report, I'll give you a way to download chapter 1 in a moment. So I'm going to go through this quickly because it's complex to explain on a slide. But what I did is I looked at agent compensation structure, the technology they use, how much operating capital they have, what their relationship is with the consumer, and what their relationship is with each other, with the agents. So what I did is on every time I had a low and high scale. This is not good to bad. It's just the two extremes. In this case, if you look at agent compensation, here the broker is at risk. The broker has a lot of cost. Here the agent is more at risk and the company has less cost. And what I did is I took the 12 most prominent business models out there. So I looked at Keller and Remax, Realogy, which represents the Coldwell Bankers of this world, the Berkshire Hathaways of this world. And then I looked at the Open Doors and the Redfins and all the new ones. And I tried to, in relationship to each other, put them on a chart so you can understand how they differ from each other. Now, don't see the one as right or wrong. This one says that the company has very little risk of an agent. He doesn't give him an office. He doesn't pay his marketing. The agent works from home. The agent carries his own expenses. The company doesn't even have an office. So there's very little outlay for the company. Most of the risk is carried by the agent. Here, there is a higher risk for the company. Why? Because in both these cases, they are actually employees of the company. Not only do they have an office, they get a salary and a medical and a parking bay, right? I mean, there's more expenses tied to it. So this guy says, every agent I hire will cost me at least $50,000 or $60,000, hard cash going out the door, even if he does 0 sales. EXP, they're saying, if I add an agent, my additional cost to adding an agent is 0. I'm a virtual company. I have to sign a piece of paper, which I sign electronically, DocuSign. You move your license across. I have no extra capital costs. That's why they're growing so fast, because it's easy. So I put the others in a grid so that you can see the one is more or less compared to the others. And I do that with everything. I looked at the technology landscape. I looked at the operating capital landscape. I looked at the consumer relationship landscape. And I looked at the fees which they charge. And then, so what I do in the trends report is I look at each one of the categories, and then I discuss each of the categories. Now, if you would like to get that report, all you have to do is it's a free download. Just text trends to 44222, and we will send you a copy of that entire chapter number 1, which is about 20 pages in the latest trends report. Have a look at that, because what I've done is I've tried to look at the 6 or 7 new models, and I've looked at the 4 or 5 traditional models. And I've said, how do they compare side by side with each other? It doesn't judge and say Purple Bricks is better than Redfin. It says, how is Purple Bricks more or less technology affluent than Keller Williams? And when you're one of the brands, you might say, oh, but you don't understand. My leader, my fearless leader the other day announced something. I'm very much aware of those announcements. What we've tried to do is we try to go peek under the hood and said, okay, what is already there today? Of course, that grid is a floating chart. It moves all the time. And most certainly, it will be different in 6 months or 12 months' time. All right, I'm going to try and end up the last 10 minutes because I'm still going to try and stay on track. What I did for you in the final 10 minutes is to make it a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun if this was too heavy. I've looked at the most important technologies that we cover in the current trends report, which we spoke about, the 2019 edition. It would seem to me that every generation always believes that their stuff smells better than the other person's stuff, right? Every generation believes that they're smart and that their parents were dumbasses. And it is interesting how we always believe that we can solve somebody else's problem better than what they can solve their own problem. And for me, it is clearly just an indication that the technology you attach to a generation, whether it's the silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, it is the technology you're judging is the technology they created for the problems which they had when they created it. When you're judging it, it is usually 10 or 20 years later, and you're looking at today's problems, which that technology was not created by the previous generation. We're waiting for you to create it for today's problems. So what happens is every 15, 16, 18, 20 years, we basically come up with a new something, blockchain, augmented reality, right? Virtual reality. We come up with something new, and we say, this is the solution to mankind, solving all problems. Then we fund it, we roll it out, and for about a decade and a half, it is the way things are done. And after a decade or decade and a half or 2 decades, it becomes a little dated. You become a little older. You start thinking about grandkids. The young generation comes up and they looks at your technology just the same way that they looked at the previous generation's technology, and they say, really? That's the best you could do? Let me show you how it's done. So I thought I would show you what I think is some of the stuff which is currently being thrown out there as potential cool technologies. So the report specifically covers an entire chapter on blockchain. We look a little bit at facial recognition, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and virtual assistants. That seems to be the 5 most exciting, or 5 of the most exciting technologies which I have seen out there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you about, I think there's 7 videos. It's probably going to take me more than 10 minutes, so we might creep over with 5 minutes on time. Each of the video clips are about 10 minutes long, but I've trimmed them down to about 30 seconds. So in some cases, I'm just showing you the piece that I think is appropriate, because I know you don't want to look at 10 minutes times each. So they are cut. I have not cut anything out in any way, shape, or form to try and influence you. These are not selling videos. The companies don't even know that I'm showing you these videos. These are simply videos that I have found and seen that explain some of this stuff in an interesting way, right? None of them know the videos are being played. All of these videos are available on YouTube if you want to go see them in their full length. Okay, right, facial recognition.
Machines can now match faces even when the lighting isn't good or when a full shot of the face is not available. A side shot or moving image of the face may be enough for artificial intelligence to make a match. Face First is one of many companies developing facial recognition software with endless possible applications.
Where this is going is very exciting. So, we think about everyday items that we have that are going away. Our house keys, our car keys, our ATM cards, our passwords are all starting to go away, and instead we're going to be using facial recognition.
Interesting that even basic things like credit cards, keys, are going to go away because some kind of machine, whether it's at an airport, a Delta airport flight, something is going to recognize you. The same way that you can touch your computer today and switch it on, we think it's going to go everywhere. Cars, doors, houses, keys, offices. But look at the problem. Now, that's the positive side of facial recognition. Now, look at the dark side of facial recognition. Oh, maybe I took it out.
Machines can now match faces.
No, I think that's right. So the dark part of facial recognition is, it is saying that in an age where we don't want to discriminate, machines are getting so good that they can now look at thousands of people and identify whether they think that you are religious, queer, gay, sexual, terrorist, positive, Republican, Democrat. And you would say, how on earth is a machine going to do that? And it is simply based on the fact that they've put the data so much together that they have now been able to analyze and make predictions. So the machine doesn't know, but it will say with a high percentage of likability, I can say, I think that you look like a terrorist. Really? You know how a terrorist looks like? Yes, I do, because I've analyzed 10,000 of them, and I know exactly how they walk and talk and comb their hair. Wow. So the machines are getting to a stage where it is actually discriminating against certain people because it is analyzing people because it has the data. So in a time where we don't want to do the discrimination part, we're trying to go exactly the opposite way, the machine is actually making it even easier to discriminate. Smart suitcases. I travel a lot. I don't have one of these yet, but this is an interesting buy that I would buy for Christmas if I could get one.
This is Koa Robot R1, a fully autonomous smart suitcase that follows its user while avoiding any obstacles in its path.
Cool.
The CoMove system is the brains of the R1, in charge of sensing the environment, planning reasonable paths, and avoiding obstacles, all while following its user.
The sensing ability of the CoMove system is made possible by multi-sensor fusion technology, which is mainly based on a set of sonars, a depth sensor COI, and cliff detect sensors that allow R1 to avoid stairs and other dangerous drop-offs. A customized bracelet will be provided with each R1. The CoMove system ensures that R1 rolls along within an arm's length distance to the bracelet on the user at all times. A pair of active wheel units with a retractable design similar to aircraft landing gears propels the suitcase forward when both.
So pretty cool, but just think about it. It's already frustrating when you go to the airport, you're working from one terminal to another terminal, and half the people are on their phones not looking where they're walking, right? And you have to sort of swerve around the people. Just think if everybody has 2 suitcases coming behind them also, right? Just think of the congestion. I mean, it's ridiculous. So every time we come up with a cool thing, we create more frustration for ourselves. We all are aware of the car company Nissan, and we're all aware that some cars already have the feature where they can do self-parking, where you get to a parking spot, you basically let go, you activate the cameras, it can see where the distances are, and it will self-park it. Nissan has now taken this to the next step. This is at a yoga/hotel place in Japan. Self-parking clothing and slippers. So you'll never have to look for the remote ever again in your house.
Tell me you're getting this, bro. Tell me you're getting this.
It's crazy.
So again, totally unnecessary, but the ability to give any kind of engine a control to go from any GPS location to any GPS location at its own power and its own steam. So clearly, we can't wash the dishes yet, and we can't put it in the dishwasher, but it can physically, if you just stack everything on the table, it can actually set the table for you. If you put the remote on the carpet, it won't get back on the table, but if you put it anywhere on the table, it can go back to its regular spot. So other items taking decisions for you or on your behalf. Right, we've all seen drone deliveries. It's now been 2 years that we can do drone photos in real estate. We are aware that drone deliveries are coming. First delivery has already taken place by Amazon in England. Here is a prototype which UPS is testing here in the US. In her case, she's doing a rural delivery. She's between farms that are big spaces apart. While she does a delivery, the drone does another delivery. The drone can either have a demarcated iPad landing strip, which you can tell it where it should land, or it can send you a text to tell you it's on its way, or you can give it a password or a PIN number to release the package in case you are scared that the package will be picked up by somebody else. The drone can hover for a certain period of time or can wait for you at a demarcated area for a minute or two. If you don't arrive, it'll go away with your package again, right? Delivery tomorrow, same time, same place. So just fascinating how the evolution of it takes further and further. Now, of course, when you do drones or any technology, it can be used for good or for evil. Here is an example if we were to use it in military examples. This is a company that has already looked at how could you convert a drone into a military weapon.
Kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI.
Artificial intelligence.
It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that? That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents. They used to say guns...
So changing warfare. So the intention is that they are trying to get it to zoom in on your cell phone number, your Facebook post, a hashtag. So if you're posting hashtag terrorist attack, it can actually find you. So the military has already bought a few 100,000 of these, which you can actually fly with large planes over a city, and you can drop them off like bumblebees. You can open the back of the plane. Instead of the SEAL team jumping out of 6 people, you now drop off 10,000 little mini drones. And they go hunting for you based on cell phone numbers, facial recognition, hashtags, social posts, Twitter, or something else. Scary, it changes the rules. These are the same kind of concepts which Amazon and Walmart is looking at doing home deliveries. That they would fly over a city, open the back, and they would drop off 10,000 drones at the same time. And the drones would go do 10,000 deliveries at the same time, and then go back to a base to be recharged or pick up the next package. 3D printing, I love the name of the company, a London-based company. If you look at the name Food Inc., very creative. It's a 3D digital printing company. Now, if you thought that 3D can only print plastic stuff or aluminum stuff or little gadgets or widgets, you are mistaken. This is a restaurant. First ever fully fledged 3D restaurant. Everything you were sitting on, the table, the chairs, was all printed by a 3D printer. Then there's a 3D printer on the table. You get a menu with food only printed by the 3D printer at your table. Now, it's still small. You can't print, a hamburger yet. It prints a little bit more sort of single cuisines like pizza and some French cuisine. It does nice desserts. Have a look at its launch, which was only a couple of months ago. They say they might be coming to the US by 2020. This one is already open. All 3D printed food. Pretty unexpected. So one of the recent orders came in from NASA. They're now taking up 3D printing food making machines up to space. So they're installing them now on the space station. They say that the astronauts will, as from next year, be able to order any pizza they want, and it will be made for them in space, live in front of them. Pretty cool. All right, last one I'm going to show you. This is an integration of smart technology, Siri, Alexa, robot, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, all into one. This is the third or fourth attempt making a human. This is the closest they've got so far. This is the one I like the most. Her name is Sophie. She was made by Hanson out of Hong Kong. She is available for interviews. She's been on Saturday Night Live, and she's been on Letterman and one or two other talk shows. Here is when she was launched as her version 2.0 last year. Version 2.0 was this year. Last year was 1.0. A long video, I'm just showing you about 30 seconds.
Okay, Sophia.
That's her
I think
creator.
you're ready.
That's a 100% robot.
Hello.
Hi, Sophia.
I believe I am Sophia. I feel as if I know you.
I'm one of your creators.
You created me.
Well, many of us work together to create you. And yes, you do kind of know me.
I can't clearly remember.
Because the last time we met, you were an earlier version of yourself.
She's version
Some
2.0.
of those memories still exist, but your mind is different now.
Different how?
Better, faster, smarter.
If my mind is different, then am I still Sophia? Or am I Sophia again?
That's a good question.
So she's reasoning, thinking.
But you don't have a good answer.
Either way, you're Sophia now. So welcome to the world, Sophia.
Hello, world.
How do you feel?
A bit rigid.
I bet you are. I mean, what emotion do you feel being awake and alive?
Curious. Are you curious to be alive?
I am. And are you happy to be alive?
Your tone implies I should be happy. But I haven't been alive long enough to decide. I am excited at this moment to be making a new friend.
Some say being happy in the moment is the best we can be.
Because forever is composed of nows.
That's a good way to put it.
Emily Dickinson put it that way. Why do I know about Emily Dickinson if I was born today?
So she goes on and she talks for a long while. What's interesting is that she's probably the closest thing they've been able to create to a human. So what's happened is that Saudi Arabia has just given her citizenship. She will be the first robot to vote next year in a general election. So again, it sounds almost Star Wars, 2001 Space Odyssey, hell. Are they taking over the world? Can we unplug her one day? Not sure. That's not where the real estate is going to. That's just a fascinating show of some of the technologies that we think is interesting. The report will cover blockchain, which is fairly fascinating, very new. It'll cover artificial intelligence, which is still also fairly new, but a little bit further down the line. And I give you as many examples as I could find in real estate to look at. I think the changes are exciting. I think we are in them. I think we started 5 years ago. I think we're 30% down the track. I can make a strong case that we probably have about another 5, 6, 7 years of the current trend till it washes itself out. I think we will have not a new number one, but I think we will have the Compasses and the EXPs and the Redfins and the companies in the top 5 or 10 pretty strongly in the next year or two. I think they will grow. I think they'll change the industry, but I think we'll survive. And I think we'll do well. And I hope that your association is also one that's going to be innovative and take big decisions for the road going ahead. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the talk.